We're coming back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Oh my God!
They went a little crazy with it, and I appreciate it.
Now let's get back with Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Welcome back, everybody. Thank you very much. Now, we were discussing, Johnny Million and I, during the break, that the Republicans really have, and Johnny, you'll be in charge of kind of checking in with the chat and seeing if they have any kind of things to add during this process, if you will. And of course, our phone lines are open, 773-763-9278. But there is a choice that Republicans have right now, and it is as clear as day. It is the simplest choice because it is the only choice. Now, we have seen many times over the last couple of days. I watched as a reporter for, I believe it was the New York Times in a press conference with Jen Psaki, where he started to. She said, "We really have two options in this situation. We can do this or this." And he goes, "Well, what, how can you say there are other options? Aren't there other options?" And she went, "Like what?" And he went, "Well, if you started drawing down people at this place," and in the middle of giving his answer, he recognized how stupid it was and had to bail out. And as if no one's ever floated these other options on how to leave Afghanistan without a single death. The goal has always been that. Of course it is. And only an idiot thinks they have the magic solution to it. And by idiot, I mean Donald Trump. And the problem that Republicans have is that when Trump comes forward and says, we need to get out entirely, I would have gotten out every nut, every bolt, and then gotten the soldiers out. You're like, okay, how do they get out after? Do we just fly helicopters in while the Taliban and everybody is at war, getting our soldiers out who are standing there holding their wad in the middle of the road after we've straight bombed a military base? I don't get it. But they have a choice. They can either recognize how dumb what he is saying is and go, oh my God, what an idiot. Sort of like Alex Jones did with him on COVID vaccines, but backwards. Or they have the other option, which is, of course, to pretend there's a secret genius to it, that he had a plan that would have worked. It would have worked. If we'd have just done if we'd have just kept Bagram Air Force Base forever, we could get out of Afghanistan without getting out of Afghanistan. It's a miracle. It's, which is idiotic. And so you have people like Kevin McCarthy who want to come out and slam the Biden administration for extending the deadline from May 1st to August 31st and then keeping to it because we don't want to stay there anymore. Figuring out another way that we can help the people of Afghanistan who don't want to live under the Taliban or under draconian rule without doing it at the end of a gun, like we do in a lot of other countries. And of course, if there are terrorist cells, in training camps in the middle of the desert in Afghanistan, it is required that we have a military response to it, doing it like we do in other countries that we don't have military bases in. We just, the attack that we sent that killed the ISIS-K planner was a, quote, over-the-horizon attack, meaning no one on the ground launched the attack. The missile or the drone was launched from far, far away. And get used to that idea increasingly for going forward. The chances of humanoid robots on the ground are a long way off. But even if Bernie Sanders and AOC were president and vice president currently, there would be a point in their presidency where a military strike was necessary, and they themselves would have a drone do it, because drones do not come home in flag-draped coffins. And so that is how the decision is going to be made going forward. And I'm not talking about maybe the military industrial complex made them. I mean a no-win situation where you have to choose between a lot of dead people and a few dead people. Those kind of decisions that presidents are often called to make, they would make it, and it would be a over-the-horizon attack using a drone. I'm just honest to God, there's no way anybody's going to send 6 soldiers in to do something unless it's the absolute last resort. That's for rescue missions. There is just no way. Just understand that. So, and Kevin McCarthy knows this too. As a matter of fact, he thinks they're, if they're the solution to everything. Trump thinks drones and Moabs, are the future, period. Mainly the Moabs. He thinks drones are whiny little machines that are too precise. Doesn't scare everybody. Doesn't put the fear of shock and awe in people the way a Moab does. So here's Kevin McCarthy answering a question about negotiating with the Taliban.
Question. You said he shouldn't be negotiating with the Taliban. Trump did that too, to be clear. So I mean, was it wrong when
Trump
he did that?
also had conditions, and he upheld the conditions. Trump never gave the names of Americans to the Taliban. Trump's never left Black Hawk helicopters more than Australia has.
Well, there is one little thing there. Trump never left, I think is really just sums up the whole answer. Of course, he never gave names of people who were trying to get through checkpoints to the Taliban, who were maintaining the checkpoints and were protecting people as they went through, because they want us to leave and we have an agreement with them. The reason he never did that is because he never got us out. He ran on it. Nothing changed during his presidency in terms of us staying or leaving as far as the value of us being there, holding up the government, holding up the military. Nothing. So Trump never gave this information, never left any material stuff behind, never did, because he never left, because he never had to, because he never had to make those choices. Here, I have some news for every Republican listening to the sound of my voice. Every piece of gear that the U.S. military isn't materially using to escape Afghanistan, Trump left behind. Every single piece. Every piece. Not including the parts, of course, that the Biden administration will launch attacks on because they're in Taliban hands and we don't have an agreement to give material support to the Taliban the way we did with the Afghan military. Right. So we're going to blow up these air bases after we're all gone. There's no question. And whether we talk about it or not, whether it makes the news or whether it's a covert hit, is immaterial. It's going to happen. Get used to the idea. Stop kidding yourself. We do it all the time. It would be stupid not to. And there's no reason to brag about it and cause more trouble than you have to and make the Taliban go. They're bragging about the fact that they blew up the right. There are no pilots. They don't have any people servicing these helicopters. They don't have Blackhawks. They have old crappy Soviet aircraft, or they have old leftover U.S. stuff that we don't use anymore. They don't know how to service it. They don't have any pilots. It's sitting in 122 degree heat. It's not going to fly. And the minute it does, it will disappear from the sky. Like anybody who thinks that suddenly there's going to be 9 Blackhawks in V formation flying over Jalalabad with Taliban pilots is an idiot. And speaking of idiots, please continue, Representative McCarthy.
No relations with the Taliban from here on out?
Well, let me be very clear. I would not allow the Taliban to dictate the date that Americans leave.
Yeah, they didn't. We have a date we want to leave. We're not going to extend it because we don't want to be there. They're not scaring us out. They're holding up their end of the deal for their soldiers who they have control of, and tenuous control at that. They're holding it up so that we can get out. After that date, they're not going to, all bets are off with their followers, which they barely are holding on to control of. And the only reason those guys are behaving is because they want us out too. And ISIS wants us in there fighting with the Taliban, so that's why they're attacking. This requires strategic thinking and a recognition that the goal of the American people is to get out. For 67% of the American public agree, want us out of Afghanistan. The other 30%-ish, depending in fluctuation, believe if we should be there, we should have a skeleton crew of military there, not an embassy. And even at that point, what's the military there for? To carry out strikes and endanger our soldiers by basically creating a hostage situation where they're inside a well-fortified military base in a country with no functioning government. Just, by the way, just north of, because they want to keep Bagram, an hour and 19 minutes north of downtown Kabul. By the way, about an hour and a half west of the side of Afghanistan that ISIS has control of. So it's like a little graph that you could kind of over time pinpoint where's the intersection in this algebraic equation of the rise of ISIS against the Taliban, and instead of fighting each other, they just decide to blow up some U.S. service people who are in a base conducting strikes they could conduct from a ship 800 miles away. Anyways, please continue.
That America leaves and leaves Americans behind and allies behind because the Taliban tells you to leave.
By the way, none of that is happening.
No.
That is just, I mean, that is an assertion about the American military that's grotesque. That's an assertion about the State Department that's grotesque. That's an assertion about everybody who serves in Afghanistan, who was in the embassy and all this stuff, like they're stiff-arming their colleagues and friends, you know, climbing over them to get to the airplane. There are hundreds of dual citizenship Afghan Americans and people who work there who are staying. Whether they are staying because they believe that they can work with the CIA to subvert the Taliban and other groups and they don't have a direct linkage and we're not bringing them out, or because they're part of the opium trade, is immaterial. They're not coming.
He's just saying all this so he can have talking points to campaign on.
But I mean, I don't think there's a there, and I think they know this as well. This has to go poorly, and for them to have that talking point. There was no version of this happening that didn't go poorly on some level, and they knew that, which is why they didn't do it. And then what are they going to be dealing with next spring? We're not in Afghanistan. Everything, as bad as stuff is happening and as terrible as the deaths of our soldiers are, and it is heartbreaking, after we leave, there's going to be a lot of terrible things that happen in Afghanistan between the Taliban and ISIS and different groups and the like. And there will be, you know, military strikes we have to do, but we will not be a part of them materially. We won't have boots on the ground doing it. All of those things, the American public, if they're informed of it at all by the media, will all be going, well, at least we're not in the middle of it. That will always be the haunting thought that will be around in all this, no matter how hard the Republican Party tries to work at hanging this around Biden's head all the way into 2022 and 2024. Isn't going to happen. It is not. And all their cries to impeach him and all that kind of stuff, it's absurd. We got to take a break. I rode right past the break. Look at that chit-chattiness that I have.
And the chat is mostly about ivermectin and the fact that you can put ice in your coffee and just have iced coffee.
Yes, which is true. So during the break, I will run and get my coffee cup, and Johnny Million will entertain you. During it happens with weird hand noises. We'll be back right after this. It's the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide, on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. I know I'm only on one day a week. I get it. I'm going to have to jump on GarageBand and start sawing something together. This is the Hal Sparks Show. And a guitar note, and then progressive, and all. Yeah, it's going to be good.
Hey, Hal, did you mean something like this?
This is the Hal Sparks Show.
And a guitar note, and then progressive, and all. Yeah, it's going to be good.
The Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Yeah, it's going to be good.
5 eggs.
That's right.
5 eggs in a month.
Welcome back.
5 eggs.
I hope everybody had a big breakfast on what we call a diamond and silk breakfast around here.
5 eggs.
All right, so what we have, I have to say, I am in the process, by the way, of making a 5 eggs T-shirt for the merch store. I've killed a couple of versions. I mean, I don't want it to just be the 5 egg emojis across the too simple. It deserves a little more than that, right?
There's a certain charm to it.
There is, I have to say, right. I will make a version that's that way for you, Johnny Million, at the very least. I'm going to send you a merch bundle. We have to, so you can have something to wear every day. But, that you don't have something that shows that you do 5Ks and 10Ks for the local food bank.
That's right.
Because you're a good man, Johnny Million, and it's why I love you. One of the reasons that, and you know where all the bodies are buried from high school, so I have to kind of play nice with you. Now, a little more magic from...
We both have each other's back.
That's true, right. A little more logistical magic from Kevin McCarthy.
President, you and others this morning have been criticizing these reports and the president confirming last night that the U.S. gave the Taliban information. If the U.S. was trying to get Americans through Taliban checkpoints, how else were they supposed to do that without giving the Taliban information about people who needed to get through those checkpoints? What other option did the U.S. military have?
You know what's interesting? Here's an administration that said they do not trust the Taliban, but they turn around and say they depend on them.
By the way, that is precisely what the Trump administration did when they made that deal last year, when they trusted the Taliban so much and relied on them so much that they broke the leader out of jail in Pakistan. The Trump administration got Baradar out of jail in Pakistan to negotiate the deal between the U.S. and the Taliban. And we're playing trust games?
Never depend on the Taliban. Why wouldn't we kept Bagram to start out with?
Because we're leaving. And because the last people that we're pulling out are the military that will protect the civilians as we go. And we're not just going to leave military on bases to be attacked while we get out the last remaining people in one city, in Kabul.
Why wouldn't we, if we ended up in that air base, why wouldn't we have pushed it back out, created enough military troops to create safe passage? Why would you?
Because we didn't want even more suicide bombings to kill even more troops. That's why.
With the Taliban. There are reports now, I read yesterday, that don't know if it's true or not.
But don't let that stop you from saying it, please.
Well, yeah, just go ahead and say it.
That's amazing to me. I don't know if it's true or not, but apparently horse paste tastes like sour apple.
Intel information since April with them? These are all questions that need to be answered. That's why...
Yeah, intel information. Like, this is the road that people are going to come to the airport on, and this is the road we expect them to get safe passage through, or we're going to cause trouble for you in the rest of the country where the rest of your bases are. And we're still going to leave, but then we're just going to dust bomb everybody you know. Like that kind of warning, the kind of stuff that military says on their way out. P.S. You know what the name of the road is that goes from the U.S. Embassy and the Embassy Row to the airport in Kabul? Johnny, do you know what the name of that road is?
Tobacco Road?
No. Although an excellent DLR reference. You get two more guesses. Not Tobacco Road. What's the name for the road that takes? And you can check the chat because they know. Because I told them yesterday.
Let me go back to the chat. Help me, chat.
There you go. Here it comes. It's good. It's good.
The road to hell?
Nope.
Airport Road?
Airport Road. The road from the U.S. Embassy.
Is reading my mind.
Yes.
The road to Ipanema.
The road that would take you from the U.S. Embassy, where all of our remaining civilian support staff and everybody is, and the surrounding area where they live in the narrow corridor around that, and the airport is Airport Road. And it's a quarter mile from the embassy to the airport. Now, Kevin McCarthy's brilliant idea is, rather than work with the Taliban and the people who are there to secure the ground and the road between the airport and the embassy, which is a quarter of a mile, what Kevin McCarthy and his ilk are saying is, wouldn't it be safer if everyone in the embassy had to travel an hour and 19 minutes on open road through the, by the way, you have to go completely through the city. And then it's another hour through the desert to Bagram Air Force Base and leave from there, all while we maintain the security of Bagram Air Force Base and secure 59 kilometers of road while ISIS and the Taliban are fighting each other, and the Taliban is taking over the territory. Now, who in the world thinks that the best escape route is the longest escape route? Who? I mean, this is goofy. And what they're counting on is that no one knows this. What they're counting on is that no one in the United States find out that Bagram Air Force Base is an hour and 19 minutes away through dangerous territory, especially when you've got Taliban fighters who are like, oh my God, military trucks. That must mean the military is breaking the deal, therefore open fire, right? We got to secure that road. Those are American soldiers with American guns out on the road. Therefore, deal must be over. I'm sure they, Kevin McCarthy and the Republicans operate on the idea that everybody there has the most amazing communication system in the world, but it's a game of Taliban telephone that's barely holding this thing together, and that's a way better plan than getting everyone a quarter of a mile to the airport that you can secure and getting them there, and that ISIS suicide bombers have hit this area once, but they wouldn't have hit an hour and 19-minute drive at all. Not to mention the gates at the actual base. Not to mention the edge of the actual city. Not to mention the embassy where everybody is just exiting from and going the opposite way from the airport, where they have a functioning landing strip and then get people out. And it's big enough and long enough, because it's for commercial airlines, that you can get giant commercial airplanes and military airplanes in and out.
Call last night, we have 3 committees: Foreign Affairs, HASC, and Intel. What Adam Schiff has done for the last 3.5 years.
By the way, his name is Schiff, not Shift. Is what?
Has failed as a chairman. Has failed this nation of what he should have been looking at.
Oh yeah? I'm sorry, what he should have been looking at? I'm sorry, were they not the people who supported the president that's now in the office that's getting us actually out?
Devin Nunes is looking into this, and these are questions we should have.
Devin Nunes is looking into this. He's convinced that the Taliban is in league with Devin Nunes's cow on Twitter.
This is a report that came out. Let's find exactly. The president couldn't answer the question with certitude. But at no given time should we provide to our enemy, to a terrorist organization, these are American names, we want to come into the airport. Why, when we're having other nations, our allies, going out and picking up their citizens, why wouldn't we have created a situation of...
Because they had a couple of hundred and we had tens of thousands. And we had a deal that your president struck that they wouldn't fire on us and we wouldn't fire on them. And the minute we had soldiers lining up enough to secure tens of thousands of people to go extract them when they were already making it to the airport on their own. Because as much as you've heard this thing about the U.S. soldiers and the Afghans that were killed, there's so far no reports that I know of that there were no American citizens in any of that. Right? I mean, we have not heard reports that there were any even from Republicans who tried to fly there in the middle of this, land on the tarmac and interrupt the process. The last time they did it, we had one Democrat and one Republican decide to fly in there, congresspeople, fly in there for oversight. And everybody's like, what shut down the runway for 3 to 5 hours? Them. That's what shut it down. Because once you get two elected officials landing in an evacuation zone, all the security goes to making sure that they don't get killed. And by the way, there was another airplane full of Republicans that tried to land, a private jet. They tried to come in right before the bomb went off. Who wants to guess they were in the process of pulling security from that detail to secure the airplane full of Republican congresspeople that was going to land. And there were fewer people at the gate because of that. And then they still, because the bomb went off, they had to turn that plane around and send him back.
Safe passage. Why would the President of the United States go on television and tell all the Americans there it's safe to go to the airport? If he
Because first of all, he didn't say it's safe to go to the airport. He said, go to the airport. We will get you out. Not, it's safe. He didn't say skip, take your time, have a coffee, simmer down, set up camp outside the airport. Nobody ever said it was safe. No one has even had the illusion. It's Afghanistan. We're leaving. No one thinks this is safe. But the system was in place for you to get there, so get there. And don't dilly-dally, because come August 31st, we're out. And then it gets really unsafe. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. The cartoonish level that these guys are going to try and defend, pretend Trump's deal didn't exist, and defend and offend the United States military, the State Department, and the administration just to score political points is pitiful, considering you're not going to weigh 20 years of not getting out against 3 months of getting out, of actively starting to remove people. The deaths involved in getting out are part of the deaths of being there as long as we have been. We'll be back right after this. It's the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. 773-763-9278 is our number.